Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your Friday night content as we're going to be jumping into the ESL Community Cup. And you know what? We have a few teams in stock, and they are locked in and ready to roll. I'm Sean FourCourtJester Delaney. With me here, Mr. Seth Lynch, a.k.a. the Shane Gucher Gaming. It's good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you too, man. I've been out of the loop a little bit, been a little busy. As you can tell, I'm getting ready to move. But I'm ready to get into some heroes and
new job, I hear.
It's underway. Yes.
So, the boxes aside, it is definitely good to get you back into the stream. Tell us a little bit about this cup, because I was a little caught off guard, but what exactly the purpose of the Friday Cup is. But, for those of you wondering out there, Shane's about to tell you, and then we're going to jump right on into the draft of Game 1 here with Tempest and new team, You Forced My Hand.
So it's a kind of they call it the Community Cup. That's exactly what it's called, the ESL Community Cup. But it's kind of more for the lesser known teams, not necessarily lesser skilled teams, not by default. Obviously, some of the teams aren't going to be as high tier. But basically, any team that is not already qualified for the ESL majors can play in this tournament. So it gives kind of an even play field for those teams that are trying to, get their name out there, show off their skills, and it essentially helps build up a team, because any good esports team always has to have a strong amateur league that helps facilitate new teams and whatnot. And I think that's the purpose of this Community Cup, is to help with that. So we're going to see some teams that I know you and I are not familiar with, Sean. A couple we are familiar with, obviously the ESV teams. We'll see some familiar names that maybe we knew from some teams of old. For any of you those who have been watching Heroes of the Storm for quite some time. But I'm looking forward to seeing this, man, and seeing if we see the same old, meta that we've been seeing recently, if we're going to see teams switch it up and whatnot. And anytime you're watching Amateur League, no matter what game, I feel like that's always you always like to see new teams mix it up and bring new strats to the board with success. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I've now done 2 sessions for the Team Heroes Hype Amateur League, and always surprising to see some of these new and bigger, bolder strats. For example, the Rising Taquitos, Horse Pants, the Lost Vikings pick. It's a thing that they've only done, but it has worked out wonderfully for them. But unfortunately, they are not here tonight. Who we do actually have here tonight is going to be Tempest and You Forced My Hand, and we're actually going to jump right into the draft. So game 1, it's the same rules as a typical Sunday Cup. It is going to be best of 1 all the way to the best of 3, and 9 teams sign up here for the guts and glory of it all. So, on to Sky Tempo, guys. You Forced My Hand going first, and they're going to be banning themselves out of Sergeant Hammer. And on the flip side, Tempest is saying no love for the Witch Doctor. Double specialist ban, Mr. Shane.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how the bans of, just the meta and drafting as a whole has switches so fast and so quickly with how fast the game has been moving. But the picks being up here, ESV Tempest went ahead and picked up a Uther. You Forced Our Hand, then picked up the ETC and Rhaegar. Followed up, ESV Tempest picked up an Illidan, and they are waiting on their 3rd pick right now. Actually, I mixed that up. That's okay. You Forced Your Hand picked up Vala, ETC, and Rhaegar. ESV Tempest picked up Uther, Illidan, and now they're waiting on their 3rd pick right now.
Right, so to just, the visuals make it so much easier. So you guys can see the comps all set up and ready to go. But we had a quick talk, just refreshing each other's meta as we were about to jump in all this. We said, you know what, you see a lot of supports picked up first these days, and the Rhaegar first pick here from Force Your Hand was a very strong indication that's going to be an Illidan comp. So at ESV Tempest said, we're not going to have any of that, so we're going to take the next best thing. In this case, it's going to be the Uther, and then they snake the Illidan out of it. So You Forced My Hand can't go into a Sergeant Hammer, protect the comp. They can't go into an Illidan. So they got to switch it up a little bit.
So right now, looking at the potential for ranged assassins, it feels pretty limited at this time. They do have Vala, who's obviously a very consistent, top tier pick for ranged assassins. But Tychus was picked up as ESV Tempest. You want to talk about a hero that's kind of fallen off of recent ages. But we still see him every now and then. Obviously, ESV Tempest picking him up. I think that may be in an effort to limit Forced Hand's options for picking up ranged assassin. But obviously, they can't get Hammer. They can't get Witch Doctor. And I'm trying to think, do they want maybe okay, I was about to see the Rainer Tyron, and they pick up the Tyron. Looking at ESV Tempest, they need a warrior. Diablo, I think, is a potential here. ETC obviously has been the big go-to one as of recent, but I think Diablo is probably the next best in line for ESV Tempest to pick up.
We have been seeing a heck of a lot of Diablo on the resurge, and it's kind of weird. I mean, like, as soon as Arthas got hit with the survivability nerf bat, he's been very scarce. Europe's still very strong with Chen, but that hasn't really caught on over here on the side of the ocean, which does kind of leave you between that and a Mirrodin. Right now, of course, the Battle Cow is going to be over to Forster Hands, so that's not going to be an option. And past that, it's going to be Stitches Sonya. And Stitches, for whatever reason, is just not a first pick material anymore.
Yeah, I know. Actually, for some reason, I completely forgot about the Stitches there. Yeah, he's kind of fallen off as well. No one's fallen off quite like Falstad, but it's amazing how quickly the meta shifted with the recent patch. I mean, Stitches didn't really receive that. I mean, Gorge received a substantial nerf, which I think was warranted and everyone kind of wanted. But the hook timing being a little bit longer isn't that game-changing. I mean, he still does a substantial amount of damage. You know, his slam build is still very effective. His fishing hook is still a very effective build. Putrid Bile is a very effective tool at dealing with dive-heavy teams. And oh my lord, look at that. Okay, they're going to go with the Falstad. As they say, a hero who has fallen off the scene, he gets picked up immediately. So we're doing a little Artosis curse right there. Are going on right there, Sean.
The Gooch curse, yeah.
Oh God, no.
Curse of the Goocher.
Yeah, I want to see what warrior they pick up here. You mentioned, the Mirrodin, the Diablo, Stitches is an option. Possibly Sonya. They have, I mean, what do they have to knock Sonya out of Whirlwind? Obviously, ETC can stun her. 2 easy short cooldowns that are easy to land. Tyron obviously has Lunar Flare as well.
That's kind of it, though, unless you go for a Rain of Vengeance.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny that you're talking about Falstad because, you know, again, as I said a little bit earlier, with the Amateur League, sometimes we see these bigger, bold strategies. If you are not confident in going with a Zera tool, I've actually been seeing more and more Mighty Gust play coming out from Falstads.
Really? And is that in the amateur leagues, or is that something?
Yeah, I haven't seen that in the Sundays or the majors, but
okay.
This Wednesday we had a heck of a lot of Falstad play, which was a little surprising, not confusing per se, but definitely surprising. And yeah, every time it's just like, no, they have to go, Hinterlands Blast. You cannot avoid that kind of damage loss, but they made some very strong arguments for the Mighty Gust. You can't sit there and channel. It's a great disengage. You can push people really far away, actually, from like tributes, from spawns. Now we're going to Sky Temple on this one. You might actually even see people swept straight off the points.
Yes. Don't forget, we also, the Mighty Gust into Mosh Pit is definitely there. Followed up with the Lunar Flare. Woo! That'll be something else if we see that. But I mean, looking at the lineup that ESV Tempest has, they do have, I mean, the Archon Illidan, those are definitely, heroes that need to get in the front line and whatnot. And Mighty Gust can definitely be a good disengagement tool. I don't know. We'll see how that works. I just haven't seen Falstad in so long. I don't know what their plan is. If they go with the typical, Hinterlands Blasts and try to combo it with something else, or if they're just going, maybe pulling something out of a pocket strategy like you mentioned with the Mighty Gust. We're going to see here in a moment. So there's our finalized drafts, everyone. Once again, the map is Sky Temple. The teams are ESV Tempest versus You Forced Our Hand. This is a best of 1 here in the Community Cup for ESL. The countdown is underway. The game is underway. And I'm looking forward to this game right here, Sean. What are your final thoughts about this draft so far, man?
The Stitches is a good pick, but I'm really curious to see which way that Falstad is actually going to go. In terms of Protect the Illidan comp from ESV Tempest, I mean, they didn't get the Rhaegar, but they got themselves Uther and Tastar, and that sets up a very strong, front line between the Illidan and the Stitches, and then, of course, the Uther in there with the melee for ourselves with an Odin in the back. Now, I was a little curious that they did actually pick up a Tychus, and they picked up the Tychus after the ETC. So as you said, they're looking to limit some more of that ranged options. But these days, it's almost as if the ranged options are more predominated by the specialist role. And I'm actually a little surprised that, it was a Falstad by the end of it. It was a Tychus, and there wasn't a Zagara for like a reset or for a collapse.
That is true. No Zeratul either. So no really big, hard, displacement tool that we're so used to seeing, at least as of recent times. But I mean, I'm going to be keeping an eye on that Falstad, that's for sure. But we're in the game here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's introduce these teams real quick. Over on the left side of your map, a team you might be familiar with, has been in the hero scene, I think, for a very long time, almost since the beginning of competitive Heroes of the Storm. Treble in the top lane, playing Uther. Nightmare playing the Illidan. Pentakyle playing Tychus. Over here, we have QXC. You probably know who that is, playing the Tassadar. And Oop playing the Stitches.
And the newcomers today, not a team that we're familiar with as of yet, but who knows? It could be the next rising stars in the making. It is You Forced My Hand, Thorgasm up top, rephrased to hold down the mid with Vulcan, Psalm. I think that's just Psalm, right?
I believe so, yes.
I'm going to go with Psalm until otherwise. And Fam, so you're holding down the bottom. Now, we do got a little bit of a mobility advantage with that Falstad pick, so that might have actually influenced that last. It's a very big map on Sky Temple. You got to go for those tributes. You got to go for those temples, and Falstad can make a really good effort in terms of split pushing and just showing up just at the absolutely last moment. And you can get small incremental advantages like that. We do got the level 1 talents out there as well, and Rancor picked up immediately here from the Vala. So not the beginnings of a multi-shot build, can still diversify into it. Been seeing actually more and more Rancor this patch, believe it or not. But other than that, everything else looks pretty okay. Armored piercing round, shadow shields, some various conjurers out and about. And we're going to be looking at some temples in just a few seconds here.
Oop on the Stitches was actually able to completely boss Psalm out of lane already. Right at a perfect timing, right when the temples come online, Psalm has to hearth away, so he is going to be out of the fight for a substantial amount of time. This is going to let ESV Tempest easily take this mid-temple completely uncontested. And as you mentioned with that Falstad, the mobility, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to keep that Falstad bottom. If he sees an opportunity to fly up here and rotate accordingly with his team, he's going to do that. But in the meantime, they're just going to soak lanes. And we see that experience already going the way. They have level 4 first. And that's definitely a pretty big advantage, but that opportunity was a very small window. And now ESV is going to rotate up here top. It looks like a little do-si-do from these teams. They're just, okay, you're going to take mine, I'll take yours. And here comes the Falstad to come up here to secure this mid fort. So let's see here. What I want to see here at level 7 is Tassadar going to go Mule, or is he going to go with the more conventional option? Over here in the mid lane, though, ETC is engaging right there. Pentacal needs to be careful. He's very, very low, but ETC's currently way out of the V position of his team. Illidan's going to go down, though, and that is their first blood going the way of You Forced Our Hand. So some contention going down for this mid-temple here. And it continues to go on here at the Watchtower. Oop is in the thick of it. He's really low. He's got to be careful. Using Protective Shield from the Tassadar is going to barely keep him up. And he's going to look for a hook and try to do some fancy plays there, but not going to play out for him.
Absolutely not. But still, a little bit more extended. As you said, a little bit of a do-si-do going on as well. But by the end of it all, it looks like one tower down. The entire gate here on red side is actually missing. Another tower up in blue and another tower up there in red. Another just fact, we did have the Tyrande actually as a last pick. Well, last 2 picks, but the last round of the picks there. Force My Hand. She's the only one on that team that can take a mule, so it's very likely to see a mule at level 7 to counter the Tassadar mule as they finish that up. So, still early on, level 6 each, but some good trading going back and forth. You Forced Your Hand is definitely not giving any ground against this much more, renowned team. So, it's a good early game from both sides so far.
Now, both heroes that can get the Mule at level 7 have to give up something substantial in exchange for it. Obviously, okay, so there's our answer for Tassadar. Giving up Static Charge is a big DPS loss. That's a huge talent for him. And then Tyron has several options level she goes. Obviously, True Shot Aura is a very strong aura that increases the damage and attack speed. And it looks like she hasn't picked it yet. So they're definitely thinking this through if they want to get Mule or not, what choice they're going to go with here.
But Tassadar didn't go for it in the end.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see if ESV actually lives to regret that. Tyrande might just be debating at this point. And something else. A lot of these guys are just soaking lanes, level 8 each. We have 1 kill on the board. That was the first blood back at the temple spawn. But the Vala is doing, I'm not sure if interesting is the word I'd use, but it's definitely a different build. I have not seen a Vampiric Assault and a Vala in a long time on NA, although it's all the rage in Korea right now.
Oh, those Korean games, man. I actually have not been able to watch much of it, but I really need to get my eyes on that, especially with the good old Tasteosis casting. But so Tyron went with the True Shot Aura. It's obviously synergized as well with the Falstad, who don't underestimate Falstad's right click. It actually does a substantial amount of damage. But more so with the right click build coming out of the Fall Demon Hunter. I think it has a lot of synergy going on there. I like that choice. If you're getting up that mule down here in bottom lane, There is a great initiation on a QXC. He's having used the Dimensional Shift pretty early, so that's on cooldown for a while. ETC's got to be careful. They are going to take down the Stitches in their front line, so their front liner's down. Nightmare trying to go in there to get a counter call on ETC, but he's going to just get completely torn up because of it. And You Force My Hand is living up to their name. And right now, they're taking a great team fight here. There is going to be a reprisal kill onto the Tyron, but that's a 1-for-5 exchange. They have level 10, they have the bottom temple. This is going to enable them to push bottom lane if they choose to do so, or maybe go with the boss. We'll see what they end up doing here. But right now, they're looking great. A rather unknown team, already showing it up against the veteran team of ESV.
And an entire ace this early on into the game. Like, we went from 1-0 to 6-1. 2-level advantage has now been achieved. You see the heroics already all skilled up there from You Force My Hand as well. And overall, I mean, the initiation here coming up from Thorgasm, from the ETC, has been just so on point. I mean, with the double heals coming behind him, the double healing wards on top of that as well. It's very clear that Tempest is having a heck of a time just trying to deal with this front line. Oop was even the first one to go down. The tank was the first one to go down. And now now we're starting to see why the Searing attacks, why the Rancor, because we got a True Shot aura. We got the Rockstar aura, which is the attack speed coming out from Thorgasm, plus damage, plus single target builds on our Vala, plus Hunter's Mark.
That's an absurd amount of single target damage.
Red.
And then wait until you get a Hinterland's Blast followed up with that. And I mean, the Wombo combo, not only do the single target damage they have is insane, but the AoE Wombo combo potentiality this lineup has is quite potent as well. Over here at the boss, there is the Starfall. We see both teams do have level 10. Moshpit gets completely interrupted. Not much coming out of the Moshpit. QXC having to use Dimensional Shift already. Illidan going down in the back lines. Oop is having to retreat using the Future Vial as well. Right now, this is once again looking at pretty good. For You Force My Hand, Treble is going to be getting picked off here. A retreating Odin is nothing you ever want to see. QXC does go down to the Hinterland's Blast. I didn't think that was going to land. Well played by the Falstad there. And once again, level 13. Another just great team fight from them, and they are well on their way to a quick, easy game here, Sean.
Yeah, the boss was activated during that entire fight, so he's in there brawling right through all of these heroics basically getting popped out. Illidan still has that Metamorphosis ready to go, or maybe it's... Well, he totally does. I know the Odin, however, is actually on cooldown. Unfortunately, my overlay doesn't show that because I'm a little out of date, have not updated to the latest one by Ali, who is an amazing...
yes, he's awesome.
Everybody uses it. Europe, Korea, America.
Yeah,
like everybody. He's definitely doing work here in the scene. But
you should get hired by Blizzard.
Well, yeah, I think. Well, I don't know. I've heard that they have a complicated relationship, but that is neither here nor there. The temples have spawned, Mr. Shane Gucher, and 14-12. We have the entire 13 talent tier up a leg on top of Tempest. We have a big power spike because 13-16 are some really important talents when it comes to this mid-late game. And You Force My Hand is basically just, this is their game right now.
It absolutely is, especially with the way ESV has been playing. Their team fighting feels really sloppy. I feel like they're not communicating very well because it just disconnected. I feel like they're disconnected. Normally this team, they have a great immaculate play. These are players that have been playing with each other for quite some time, but it doesn't seem like that by watching. Here we go. See if they can maybe make up some ground here. Trouble's looking for Divine Storm, but he's just going to get absolutely destroyed from the single target right-click damage that we've seen. Divine Storm in the backline, but there just isn't much follow-up. There's a Metamorphosis on a Tyron. She's getting low. Can there be an Ancestral Healing? It is up. It's not going to be used. Psalm also very low, and this is finally looking like ESV Tempest, even down a talent tier, at least for a small amount of time. We're able to push him out of the temple here. They did lose 2, though it was a 2-for-1. They are going to be able to get the temple, but even with that team fight going their way, look at bottom lane. I know why their Ancestral Healing wasn't there all of a sudden. The 4 Golem push with Rhaegar, so that was just delayed tactics from You Forced My Hand. They're going to give up that temple, and they got the tier 2 towers bottom lane, applying a lot of pressure onto this keep. So I initially was going to say that was a pretty even exchange, but actually I would say that goes a little bit in the way You Forced My Hand.
Well, they got the more kills. They lost out in some of the tower shots, but they did actually get a good majority of those. And they got the bottom turrets. I mean, yeah, as you see, 16-14. We've actually now upgraded to about a level and a half between the teams. But once more, we are up that 1 talent tier. And this is where the big guns come out. Blood for Blood, Overdrive, Earth Grasp Totem, Imposing Presence, and Ranger. That owl damage can really start racking up by the end of the game. A nice move here from Tempest, though. They pick themselves up their bruisers. That's going to be marching down this top to counter out the red bruisers, but it doesn't look like Red's going to give up this top lane without a fight. They're nurturing out a lot of their mercenaries here. So, you know, so far, again, pretty impressed here with you.
Yes.
Force my hand. They have definitely been forcing a lot of fights to their way, but still, they're going to be pushing out top. Looks like Tempest is going to respond by pushing out bottom. That's going to be a fort trade, but if they go for anything past that, they're going to lose the race.
Yeah, I mean, you have a single target Vala pushing down here. Are they Hearthen? They are Hearthen. Okay, so they're definitely going to put up a defense. They might not even get the fort in exchange. Nightmare's trying to YOLO it down, but they're going to be down their Illidan for quite some time, so they're not going to be able to really... I mean, they're going to have to play defensively, maybe look for a hook into a good pickoff, but right now they definitely can't initiate on them. Forced my hand is looking like, you know what? You're not forcing her hand quite yet. Hook off the mark, not level 16. Don't got the fishing hook quite yet, else that probably would have landed. So they did get the fort bottom lane, but the tier 2 towers are now knocked down in the top lane. And don't forget on Sky Temple Deer, on Sky Temple here, not Sky Temple Deer, I'm not dating you guys, that with every little building going down makes the temples you capture just that much more efficient, that much more dangerous, and that much more potent. So I think that's a good exchange for them, the tier 2 towers for a fort. At this stage of the game, the fort doesn't mean much. There's a hook they were looking for right there. Actually able to get away a good defensive Lunar Flare into a 3-man mosh pit on top of a Starfall. This is the wombo combo they were looking for here, Sean. To immediately going down to the Hinterland class. Nightmare just getting absolutely disintegrated. Even in Metamorphosis, Reign of Vengeance is going to go down here as well. A great Lunar Flare. Pentakyle is going to try to keep himself up. Speaking of pentas, we're looking for a penta kill coming from Force Your Hand right now. QXC's on full retreat, but you cannot run away from the wolf dog right there. Rephrase. Actually, no. Okay, I thought there's the false step flight I was looking for. He's going to go down. So the Force My Hand, getting a handful, getting all 5 of Tempest once again, right as the temple spawn. Once again, they're looking great right now, Sean.
Another ace going the way of You Force My Hand. That is twice now they've done this in 11 minutes on this somewhat veteran team at this point. I mean, Tempest has not been playing bad as I can recall as of the last few weeks, but right now they are just not looking on point whatsoever. They keep misplaying. There doesn't really seem to be a lot of impact in a lot of these team fights. Force My Hand, I mean, the Ancestral doing work, that wombo, that money wombo at the end there. So the Mosh hit not only the Uther, but the Stitches as well as the Tychus, and there's nothing an Illidan or a Tassadar can do up against that. And now we might actually lose out Volley here. She's broken the cardinal rule. You stick with your team in the end game, but we also got, both of these temples have now been, shooting off their load, and there goes 2 keeps looking for a third because we got these double creep wave now pushing up with Mercs.
Oh, ESV better hit their B button and hit it quick. Force My Hand looks like they're about to do a core dive down a man. Is that really what they're about to do here? They are. All right, Forcing My Hand indeed is forcing the issue. QXC's completely by himself. They're just going to get this bottom keep, and I think they're just going to try to do, they know they're way ahead. I think they're just going to try to suicide in this core, do as much damage as possible. Maybe not suicide per se, but just try to do as much damage as possible, see if they can get some hull damage, and then maybe just, as the temples come up, to try to do the damage via the temples. Because with every single one of the structures down for ESV Tempest, these temples, I mean, 1 or 2 temples is just going to completely blow up the core. And now they're in a state where they don't have to really take a team fight. They can just rotate the temples and eventually win kind of through attrition, by just letting the temples blow away the core. So that was an interesting tactic there, but they got out of there unscathed.
Well, they were down a man, so they weren't able to actually contest the boss. So what do? You put up this pressure, and that pressure did force everyone back from ESV Tempest. They're not pushing with this boss. This boss is actually going to get burned down before it does any kind of big substantial damage into this bottom lane. And on the cusp of all that, we're looking at level 20 hype just seconds away here from You Force My Hand, and that is going to be a huge bonus to their team fighting potential, because coming up, you're 3 levels down. Well, 2.5, but yeah, let's call it 3 at this point. Doesn't really matter. You're down once more at the talent tier. Here comes the game-ending temple. If it actually goes uncontested, I mean, we have literally just the naked core at this point. And You Forced My Hand, this could just be the game-winning fight, because they got not only the talent tiers, but the levels, the confidence, and the momentum. Like, this is, again, their game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, top lane's pushing in with the Night Camp, so if they want, they can just play the tactic game, or the keep away tactic game, where it's just like, okay, we're just gonna let the lane push in with catapults, and we're gonna kill your core through that. But the team fight down here in top lane, Archon might have been used a little prematurely. Starfall's being used. I think it's a defensive Starfall to maybe sound the horns to retreat. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to exchange the Starfall usage for an Archon usage. I definitely think Archon is a much more pivotal ultimate. Tyron can do so much with a good stun. There's a good hook on a rephrase. If they're able to blow up the Rhaegar, that'll be phenomenal, but the Sister Healing is on point. Trouble gets taken out. He is going to Ghost. He is going to look for a Divine Storm follow-up, but I don't know if that's going to be enough here, Sean. There is no Archon. Nightmare gets taken out without anything being done here, and this is Forced Hands game. They're absolutely going to take this game in a very convincing manner. So well done by them. They're going to get the Temple, charge down the core, and take this game, man. Well done by them. I'm definitely impressed by their play.
3 lanes of catapults pushing in. We had the bruisers here, and the third ace will seal the deal. And You Forced My Hand will move on here for the ESL NA Community Cup. I think this is pretty much the first of its series, but based upon feedback on the website, looks like this will not be the last. And perhaps we will see more from You Forced My Hand in the future. But for now, they move on. Congratulations, guys. You win.
Well done by them. They're definitely looking strong. Not to take away from Force My Hand, they played phenomenally, but I definitely feel like ESV Tempest weren't on their game at all. Definitely felt very disconnected. There's definitely some, I don't want to say conflicts, but definitely some miscommunication going on, because there's times where, you know, Archon was being used, but Odin wasn't, or, you know, their movements weren't very fluid. Definitely felt like that they weren't on the same page this time around, which is unfortunate, because usually they're a very strong team. But obviously, well done by Force the Hand. They're going to move on to this tournament and going to see who they're going to play up against next year, Sean.
There's definitely something to be said for Tyrande picks. I mean, a lot of people really don't think in terms of, you know, get some supports, get a tank or two, get yourself some range damage specialists, get yourself some range damage assassins. But Tyrande really does bring a lot to the table. I mean, between the movement speed and the attack speed coming out of ETC, we had the 10% with the true shot from Tyrande on top of that, and a hunter's mark. Like, the damage blow up is real. Vala immediately went into a single target build. We had searing attacks. We had giant killer. The blood for blood. I mean, you almost never ever take the blood for blood. I mean, that's core. But at the same time, I mean, she becomes an absolute monster. The mosh in the middle of the game. I mean, an absolutely money mosh, caught all 3 of the stuns. And 3 aces later, I mean, you're up 3 levels. It's basically in the bag. So very impressive play. It was some really good drafting out of them, especially playing to the strengths of their comp for Sky Temple. And who do they actually face as they move on?
They're going to be facing the other ESV team, Wildfire, who I think if you ask anyone, people will say that Wildfire maybe has had a little bit more success than Tempest. So I think they're gonna they beat the big sister. Can they beat the big sister in Wildfire? So we're gonna look forward to that match. We're gonna see which game we end up with casting. We don't know for sure.
I can tell you which one we're actually casting next.
That sounds good.
It will be Seventh Heaven versus Premonition. They've patiently waited. They said, we're gonna wait for you guys, and they're gonna do their first round match basically in the next few moments. So we're gonna get that rolling for you. But Shane, anything else you'd like to say before we get on?
I just wanted to say I really liked Force My Hand's draft, even though it was, there was the Falstad pick, as I said, I was like, oh, Falstad doesn't ever get played anymore. It gets picked anyways. But I'm okay with that because he's one of my favorite heroes. I liked how their team really, their draft as a whole complemented each other so well. They had great AoE potential through Mosh Pit, through Starfall. I mean, great AoE abilities that are very threatening and force the enemy team to be constantly having to be aware of their positioning all the time, forcing those decisions to be made by the enemy team. And then not only did they have that, but they had the awesome single target damage to complement it. So they had a very threatening AoE damage presence. They had a very threatening single target presence. They had a lot of they had great stuns with the ETC, Tyron, Lunar Flare. And anytime Tyron has a hero that helps assist Lunar Flare as a follow-up rather than as kind of a main stun, that really takes a lot of weight off the Tyron shoulders player, knowing, okay, I know if you land a good Mosh Pit or a good Rain of Vengeance, that all I have to do is go, oh, this is easy, Lunar Flare, and that's a dead nerd right there. So I really liked their draft, I hope we start seeing more stuff like that with like maybe ETC Falstad, stuff like that coming up from these new teams. I really like their draft.
So, as we said, 2 new teams are going to be coming at you. We're going to get that game rolling here. Will there be more Falstad? Will there be more Tychus? Will there be the Lost Vikings? I mean, Horsepants really just kind of exploded onto the scene with the taquitos with that. So it is really fun and exciting to see some of this upcoming talent. And when we return, we will have for you guys Premonition and Seventh Heaven when we come back. FourCourtJester are not going anywhere, and we'll see you in chat.